Well, hello and welcome to Graduate Space Radio. I'm Chris Palmer. What you were hearing in the background is actually coffee house noises, which I love. Maybe we'll have to incorporate that into our intro later. But this is the Productive Accident series. This is episode 8. I've got my friend Peter Williams going to pop up on the screen here. Let's see here. And here we are. So, Peter, if you'd like to say a few words and introduce us here, and then we'll do your friend Mush you brought along for today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So today we've got a really special guest, a friend that I met in Hong Kong, Mush Panjwani, who is now based back in Pakistan, in Karachi, where he's gone back and he's opened up a series of coffee and co-working spaces that I'm sure he'll tell us more about. But yeah, this is our, I think, 8th episode of the Gratitude Space Radio / Productive Accidents collaboration, which is just this organic, evolving series of conversations with interesting people from our collective networks. And we talk about gratitude, we talk about serendipity, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about creativity, we talk about how we met and how that's become this evolving adventure. And in a lot of ways, I want to really, give credit to both Mush and Chris for kickstarting some of the projects that I've played with over the years. I met Mush when he presented at I guess it's kind of like night school for startups called General Assembly, which Alison Baum had brought from New York and set up the Hong Kong office. And I met Alison at a TEDx event, and I didn't really know anything about General Assembly. And then I think initially she was putting on maybe one event a month, and then it was one a fortnight, and then one a week, and then pretty much every night of the week. And interesting speakers around coding or user experience or entrepreneurship. And Mush was hosting an event called The Essence of an Entrepreneur. And, it had a bit of a summary of what that was about, and I was sort of curious to learn more. And I went along, and Mush said several things that made a big impact on, projects that I started to play around with. But before I go into that, because it'll take a little bit of time, let's jump across to Mush, and he can give us a little bit of an overview of his life adventures. And I know there's plenty of them. And if he doesn't remember all of them, I'll chip in and remind him of a few things that stood out to me. How are you, Mush?
Fantastic. Hi, Chris. Hi, Peter.
Good to
see
you.
Mush.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Exciting to be on a podcast and looking across 3 different countries. Amazing.
Yeah, we've got 3 time zones right now. We've got Kentucky with Chris, we've got me in Hong Kong, and we've got Mush in Pakistan, which is pretty cool. I think this is the first time that we've pushed it to this extreme, but I think it might be the beginning of more. I think we've got a potential episode with someone in Amsterdam, I think, coming up next week, which is kind of fun. So yeah, to be continued. So Mush, maybe you can start by just explaining your story. Like, how did you end up in Hong Kong? And I know a big part of your story is growing up in Pakistan and getting an education, meeting your wife, and then I know you've got 4 children and all of the different adventures. How did you get out to Hong Kong? And maybe just give us your story.
I was born in India. I grew up in Pakistan. And I lived in Hong Kong for 20 years. And I don't speak any Chinese. My Mush is the first half. Difficult in Hong Kong to pronounce. M-U-S-H-T-A-Q, correctly pronounced. So everybody would sort of say mush and then freeze and think for a moment. And I said, mush is fine. My childhood was spent in extreme poverty in Karachi. Not enough to eat, not enough water, not enough. Big drop for poor kids from one of the not quite slums, but kind of a slum area. And I finished my high school, and there was no money to go to college. No money as in there was get on a bus and go to college. And that was the most depressing time of my life, when there was extreme poverty and no change or no clear path in sight. That if I can't go to college, if I can't educate myself, how do I get a job? How do I start making money? How does life turn around? And it was so depressing that I wanted to commit suicide at the age of 15. Luckily, I was in love with a girl who was 13 years old. And also, luckily, I had a lot of dreams associated about my life associated with her, and having a beautiful, comfortable life, amazing life with her. And also at the same time, I had a dream which was unusual. And the dream was that my kids are ready to go to college. I should have enough money that they could go to any college in the world. And they would not have to go through what I was going through. Not have enough money for a bus fare to go to college. And that dream was extremely, extremely powerful. That gave me a lot of strength and motivation and power. And I'm sure you've all heard of Paulo Coelho. And he's written some amazing books, and he's got these very inspiring quotes. One of the most inspiring quotes about Paulo Coelho is, there's only 3 things that can change your life: love, dreams, suffering. And obviously, I was extremely lucky to have all 3 of them at a very early age in my life. I was in love, I was suffering, I had a lot of dreams. And I think that made it all happen. That just helped me turn my life around. It's a long story, but I expected a miracle to happen in my life, which was for a bicycle to appear in my life, so that I could bicycle to the college, back to the college. And that happened, and I started going to college, and I started doing some tuitions and part-time jobs. Struggled my way through a university. My dream was to become an engineer, so I went to the engineering university, but I continued to work. And while experimenting with several part-time jobs, one of the jobs I landed was selling encyclopedias door to door, and working on commission and making commission on sales that I was making. So university in the morning, evening, making phone calls to parents, and at night, visiting parents door to door and selling them encyclopedias. And I just fell in love with the idea of making money on commissions. I fell in love with the idea of sales, meeting new people, challenging myself every day, being strong enough to handle the rejection and disappointments that come in the sales job. I just loved everything about it. And I actually dropped out of the university to pursue a career in direct sales. So from a part-time salesperson, I went on to becoming a full-time salesperson and started recruiting and training other students from similar backgrounds as mine, giving them an opportunity. And at the same time, while I was going through all of this, I was also reading a lot. I think that made a huge difference. I was reading about a lot of self-help books, and those days it was Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins and all the sales gurus. I was reading and applying those principles in my life. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, all of that stuff. And I started applying that in my life, started teaching that in my sales training programs, started fulfilling my dreams one at a time, moved forward in my life. I did that for 11 years. And at the end of those 11 years, I was heading a very large sales organization in Pakistan. We had built 3 different brands and several sales teams across several cities in Pakistan. So from a part-time salesperson, I had gone up to be the general manager in that company, heading 3 sales divisions and 3 different product lines. One of the products that we were selling were Time Life products, division of Time magazine. And that division was extremely successful. For the first time in Pakistan, we had built a sales team comprising all women, moms. And this was an idea inspired at that time from successful sales teams in India, Philippines, and Indonesia. And I had a conference, and I'd seen those 3 were the top 3 sales teams in Asia at that time, the late 80s. And inspired by them, I came back to Pakistan and built a very large successful sales team. And so the company that we were importing the products from gave me an opportunity, offered me to move to Hong Kong. And my job was to teach the rest of the distributors how to build successful sales teams, how to implement effective recruitment and training programs, and motivating and managing and growing sales organizations. So 1997, when everybody was moving out of Hong Kong, that's when I moved to Hong Kong. And I was given responsibility for about 10, 12 countries in Southeast Asia and around. And I did that for 16 years. I helped build those distributors. I helped expand the business in 21 countries, so all the way from Australia to Saudi Arabia and everything in between, and North Asia, Japan, Taiwan, China, Korea, everywhere. So I helped build distributor networks for that company, helped those distributors build successful sales, marketing, and customer service teams. And most of my job was training. And what was so great about my training programs was the two fundamentals, the two foundation to success that I had incorporated in my training program at an very early stage was, one was all about positive psychology, positive thinking, the happiness philosophy, and how being positive is one of the most important skills that you need to learn to be successful in any area of your life. And the other was the 4 steps program, which was the dream, the goal, the plan, the action. And that was a huge part, that became the huge part of all my training programs. I was living those 2 things, and I was teaching those 2 things, and I still do. Still at my cafes, very first day the person gets hired, he gets to sit with me and go through a positivity training program, a session with me on how to be positive and happy in life, regardless of what's happening, whatever the circumstances are. So I think that's quite a long intro, but just to continue. So I did that for 16 years in Hong Kong. And then one of the best things happened, I lost my job. And it was the best thing to happen because that allowed me to pursue my next dreams, which were to be all related to being an entrepreneur myself. So I was in my late 40s, but I was extremely grateful. I took that extremely positively. And within 2 weeks of losing my job, I set up a training company of my own. And that's when I was working from General Assembly, and that's when I was running these programs, networking events to market myself. And that's, Peter, that's one of those programs that we attended. And the idea of those programs was more of a 45 minutes trailer of what Mush's success training is all about. And then corporates would sign me up to go through a 3 days program or a number of programs that I was offering at that time. So I did that for about 5 years in Hong Kong. And then 2016 and 17, I had a few training assignments in Pakistan. And I came to Pakistan, and like I would in most countries of the world, I would work from a coffee shop. I would go to several coffee shops in Pakistan. And the idea would be that I would go sit there, work, meet people, have my breakfast there, prepare my presentations there. And I realized that coffee culture was lacking, missing in Pakistan. I couldn't find real coffee places where there would be power sockets for customers to plug in their computers, where there would be Wi-Fi available. Coffee wasn't great at most coffee shops. Coffee prices were awfully expensive. And I just realized that all of those places were actually restaurants. They were all focused on selling food. And even the couple of international coffee chains that were here, that are still here, they had adopted themselves to become restaurants, full-on restaurants, focusing on breakfast, lunch, dinner, and focusing on people coming in and getting out as fast as possible. Not the idea of what we have everywhere, the Tim Hortons, the Starbucks, the Costa, or in Hong Kong, we used to have the Pacific Coffee, where people would just sit and study and work and meet and spend their day, basically. And so I saw a huge opportunity. And one of my long dreams was to open a coffee shop. I used to think I would do that in Hong Kong, but I saw a very, very huge opportunity of setting that up in Pakistan. And actually, believe that a coffee shop can actually impact people's lives positively. You go to a good coffee shop with a cheerful staff, with a good coffee and snacks, a good environment, positive vibes. It just has a very, very positive impact on people's lives. And I decided to move to Pakistan and pursue that dream. I gave up my training company. I gave up a very comfortable life in Hong Kong. I had to even leave my family behind because nobody wanted to go back to Pakistan. But I just had to do it. I left. I came here 2017 end. Spent 3 years developing the business plan. And 31st of December, the plan was ready. And I started working on the plan. 4 weeks to find a space, 6 weeks to launch. And 1st April 2018, the first coffee shop was launched where I'm sitting right now. This was the one. And I was prepared for both the worst case and the best case scenarios. Of course, I was planning for best case scenario. The worst case scenario was that this is not going to work because every expert had told me that if you're not selling food, no kitchen, no cooking, it's not going to work. How do you make money? People will be sitting there with their laptops, coffee. How does that work? Not a business model. And I just had enough faith to go and said, worst case scenario, I'll do it for 3 months and shut it down if it doesn't work. At least I won't regret that I didn't try it. And it was clear in my mind, 3 months, that in 3 months, either I start breaking even or I shut it down and focus on the backup plan was introduce the corporates in Pakistan to the happiness, positivity training and success training program. So which I started doing on the side. Best case scenario was that in 3 months we break even. Month 4, we start making money. We achieved that. At the end of the first year, we would launch a franchise program. We achieved that. At the end of 2 years, we would have 5 outlets. We achieved that. At the end of 5 years, we would have 20 outlets. And that's what we're working on now. Wow, that's quite a story, isn't it?
But it's cool because, you know, where I met you, yeah, congratulations on what you've been able to do, Mush. It's awesome. And when I met you, you were also you'd written a book. And so one thing that we all have in common now is that we've all created books, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. In fact, one idea, and because I'm thinking about it right now, is an idea I'd love to play with, and an extension of some of these conversations is to get 4 authors on one conversation with anyone else that wants to dial in and have completely unrelated book titles. But each author will get 10 minutes to introduce their book and what it's about and how that, you know, why did they write it, and, you know, Q&A type thing, and just see how much interest that generates. Because straight away, I know so many people that have written books, you know, that we've discovered over the years, or people that have reached out subsequently to writing. And Mush, the big things that I remember from your presentation, because I just went along, you know, you might recall one of my, I guess, decision filters or frameworks for the way I think about things is this idea of productive accidents, you know, which is, you know, you go along to these random events that, you know, where you're curious and you keep an open mind, and you know, you've got a pretty high probability of learning something new. And I'd been doing that ever since I moved to Hong Kong, which was 10 years ago. And it's all inspired by a professor at business school who literally had said, you know, his big advice to us was, from a career point of view, was just to put ourselves at risk of productive accidents. So there's no guarantees, you know, you're taking, you know, a bit of a leap of faith. But the more you do this, the more that you start to see that serendipity and magic can happen on a fairly predictable and repeatable pattern. And, you know, going to your event that evening for General Assembly was an example of me just showing up and seeing, you know, what I could learn. And because at that time, I think you were going through the phase of, well, you described how you'd been made redundant. And then you said, well, that's no big deal. I wanted to write a book anyway, and I'll do it now instead of, you know, 3 years from now or whatever it was. And the best thing that you did for me was you said, you reverse engineered the book, and you said, look, if you want to write a book, you say, look, I want to make it 100 pages long and I want to get it done in 100 days. That means you need to do a page a day. And I still remember, your formula for that was, getting up at 5 a.m., going for a swim, having a good breakfast, being at your desk by 7 a.m., and just locking away for 4 hours every day, right? From 7 a.m. till 11, because you knew that's when you're going to be more creative. And then in the afternoons, you just pivoted towards, you're probably a little bit sleepy and less creative, but you can reinvest that time in different ways, which was catching up with people at coffee shops and building a network. And then in the evenings, you were doing these presentations, and then you'd get up the next morning and you'd go for your swim and you'd do your writing. And if you literally did that consistently, you'd probably get it done in 30 days rather than 100 days, because you've already had a lot of content, I think, in your case. And then you held up your book, which was Dhinchak Life, which was all about positivity and everything else. And that had a big impact on me.
Peter?
Absolutely, go for it.
And so actually, it was 100 weeks that the book was written
100
in.
Weeks.
Yes.
I thought you said you had to write it in 100 days.
Because when I decided to write that book, I was a senior director in that corporate, and I was managing 20 countries, and I was traveling extensively, and I had volunteering programs. It was the busiest time of my life, and I was looking at this particular dream of mine, and I said, even if I write one chapter every Sunday morning, all I need is 100 Sundays. And I thought, oh my God, 100 Sundays is like 2 years. And then I said to myself, so what? At least 2 years, the book would be there. Otherwise, if I never start. So it was 100 Sundays. And over those 100 Sundays, I wrote 100 chapters. And exactly 2 years from that date, I had, out of those 100 chapters, I picked the 50 best chapters, and each chapter was 2 page book that came about.
Interesting. I'm going to keep misquoting you and say it was 100 days because I've told probably 100, 200, 300 people over the.
You said on every podcast too.
Oh yeah, I've definitely said
plus it. 7 now, 8 podcasts.
100 days sounds a lot more inspiring and a lot more amazing.
Yeah, well, I thought you were in that phase where you were in between roles, so I thought you had 100 days to invest in this. That's probably why I think of it. But it made a big difference because around that same time, we had a guy, Craig Wortman, did a webinar at work around what is your story, and he spoke about the value of stories. And you bring these two ideas together where I had bought his book on the way to work, and I bought it on Kindle, and I read the introduction, and 3 sentences in that book jumped out as well. I think it must have been parallel to meeting you, because he said, stories are your most valuable asset, more important than facts. If you don't write them down, they did not happen. And, all of these ideas around stories just kept on converging. And I ended up doing my first self-published book where I just curated the content, and I made it literally 100 pages because, I was remembering your model, and I learned how to self-publish that to Kindle through someone in the Baller Dinner Network that you're familiar with. And that's how that happened. And then last year I self-published another book, which blew through the 100 pages. But by then I just said, okay, I've done the 100 pages. Now I can just be, less worried about that. And it's probably a 300-page book or something. But, you don't write a second book unless you've wrote the first book. So, it definitely, I owe you a big thank you for planting that seed and providing the structure. And the other thing that you mentioned, I still remember, was this idea of, what if you leave a big company and you don't have all the infrastructure around you? How do you stay focused and motivated and keep things in perspective? And the big takeaway was this importance of gratitude. And, you said, look, if you've got fresh running water in your place, wherever you are, then you're already better off than 80% of the people on the planet. And that planted a seed. Because I think the next day I was on a flight to Melbourne, and I had a notebook where I'd written down, some of the ideas that you had mentioned in your program. And I think I was following a bit of Seth Godin's blogs at the time. And he's always talking about, show your work, just put it out there. It doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, just get it out into the world. And he'd been writing a daily blog, I think at the time about 10 years now, it's probably about 20 years. And I was going, well, I'm not going to write a daily blog about banking or finance. I mean, that wouldn't be terribly interesting from, to many people, I don't think. But maybe I could do something about gratitude, and so that's what planted the seed. And I was reading Malcolm Gladwell around the time and 10,000 hours. So I said, okay, let's see if I can do 10,000 thank yous. And I'm going to jump across to how I met Chris. So this time last year, when I was trying to finish my second book on productive accidents, this number 100 popped up again. I was doing Seth Godin's The Creatives Workshop. A couple of hundred people around the world converging to, I guess, nudge each other towards finishing different projects. And it didn't matter what you were doing. If you're a poet, try to pick up your pen and write a poem every day for 100 days. If you're a musician, pick up your guitar, practice. If you're trying to finish a book like me, pick up your laptop. And I literally had a piece of cardboard beside the bed where I had a 10 by 10 grid. And I said, okay, if I've picked up my laptop for, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, I'll put a dot in one of those boxes. And I completed 100 dots. And during that 100-day period, I was able to get through the first complete draft of the book. And then I subsequently edited it and all those other things, but it was printed in August last year. But yeah, that discipline made a big difference. But during that program, this creatives workshop, someone had written about a guy in New York, Chris Schembra, who has a thing called Gratitude and Pasta. And he hosts dinners. Normally they're physical dinners, like in his courtyard or in his apartment or something in New York. But because of COVID, he had taken it virtual. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, tell me more. I'm more interested in gratitude. Tell me your story and when is your next event? And he said, well, we've got one this, I think it was their Thursday evening, my Friday morning, and 7:47 p.m. New York time is when I think they boil the water to put in the pasta or something. That's 7:47 a.m. Hong Kong time. So I said, okay, you have dinner, I'll have breakfast, and I'll just join one of these dinners via Zoom. And long story short, he ended up introducing me to Chris Palmore, who's also got a gratitude project called Gratitude Space Radio, and a book that he's also published last year, and another one that he has in progress. And we just connected. Chris interviewed me for a podcast when I completed my book. Also a podcast about who do you want to thank on your birthday, and that's converted into this series of podcasts, and it keeps on snowballing. Similar to when I met you, after going to General Assembly, you said, oh, by the way, there's this morning, once a week, there's this group called Business Network International. You might want to come along. And it just happened to be 5 minutes from where I live, down the escalator to this coffee shop, meet 30 different business people. It had nothing to do with my day job, but I met lots of interesting people. And it became, like an event company almost, right? Or, your own personal group of experts on a whole range of things, because Business Network International, by design, they have one representative of each different industry. So there's one yoga instructor, there's one insurance salesperson, there's one, encyclopedia salesperson, or, all these different skill sets coming together, which to me had productive accidents written all over it. But you're going to meet interesting people and convert into different things. In Chris's case, so I want to jump across to him and, get him to tell his story about how did he discover the power of gratitude, because I think it'll resonate with you as well, Mush. But I'll pause. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. Well, there was so much you guys said I wanted to comment on, so I'll try to back up here. I appreciate, Mush, you sharing your story, and I really there was a lot of really great things, but I love what I was hitting on was like we were talking about coffee shops and how they're, where people meet up and they get work done and they connect. And, to go to my gratitude story, I wrote a letter to my mother on my birthday, December 13th, the end of the year, 2013, December 30th. I wrote her a gratitude letter as a way of surprising her and honoring her on my birthday. And I put that on Facebook because I wanted her to find it. I wanted it to be public. And that letter, when I talked to my dad later in the day, like I asked him if she'd read the letter, and he said that she hadn't, that she couldn't talk to me, that she needed time to like digest it, basically, which my mother being, just give backstories, like, my mother and I are very close. I probably talked to her the day before. I had no problem kissing her on the cheek and telling her I love her in public. So when he told me that she had to take a pause for something that I did, really impacted me in a massive way. So that what looking at that is like, it's not magic to write a gratitude letter, but what a gratitude letter can do is complete magic. It can do what you just can't do. It can do things you think that can't be possible. It can do things that you won't even think of, like it's like stirring the pot. You just don't know, but so we talked later that day, and it created this moment, right? It created a moment that nothing else had. And I didn't know at the time that her, at that moment, my mom was very healthy, but I didn't know her cancer was going to come back. And I didn't know that 4 months the day later that she passed away in hospice care. So that the impact of that letter, came back around to me again when at her funeral, my dad asked me if I wanted to say anything, and I had no desire to get up and cry in front of a bunch of people. I didn't need to do that, but I kept thinking about this letter and how it had done something that had basically put this mark and created this moment. So I had my cousin actually read the letter to me and everybody at the funeral, and it created what I call gratitude. Gratitude stacks all the time. You just have to look for it, So in this story, simplistically, I wrote a letter of gratitude. That was my own experience. That was my stack. My mom read that letter of gratitude. That was her stack. We were together. That was its own stack. My dad read the letter. When you put it in public, anything can happen. My dad read the letter. It had its own stack. My sister read the letter. Friends of my mom read the letter. Right now, I'm at my mom's funeral, and there's a whole new stack, right? I'm listening to somebody speaking to me saying, I'm going to tell you I love you more this year. I'm going to make you more proud. I'm going to spend more time with you, and it has this resonated tone. And now, let's move forward 6 years, and, it's stacking right now. Literally that letter is stacking right now, and the amazing thing about gratitude is my mom was a very grateful person, but she was also a huge catalyst for gratitude, which is all I want to be. So if you want to say the original stack was my mom loving me, when you love people, you're being a catalyst for gratitude. When you're kind to somebody, you're being a catalyst for gratitude. When you show up and you're present, these are all they're all catalysts for gratitude. So, so what has come out of my mom loving me? This letter, obviously, I started a website now I'm going back around to the coffee shops. So after the next year, I wrote a letter to my dad, and it was a very different letter. It was very dramatic. He allowed me to look at our situation in a very big perspective. My mom was my mother, but to him, he was her life. Seeing his pain actually put my pain in perspective. I think perspective is a massive key to being grateful. It's a massive thing. So I wrote a letter to him the following year, and after having this very similar connection again, that just doing something like that, I asked this very simple question. I said, how can I assist other people in having this experience? How can I be a part of creating that atmosphere? So I started I go, okay, well, I gotta build a website, and then I got to get people to write letters, right? So I started going to Starbucks every day, there was obviously a lot of them. I chose one that was a little farther away, and I would get there at 6. They were open at 6 in the morning. I was getting up at like 4 in the morning. So they were there for me, right? It was a place I could go, leave, nice place, nice people, big atmosphere. And I started working on this website, and I would meet people. I was in this really great space. I would meet people, have great conversations. This was my first actual gratitude practice in my life, was me sharing my story and working on this website at a coffee shop every day. That was my thing. I would get up and I would go there, and the connections, if it's a graphic designer or even somebody who invited me to his birthday party where I collected gratitude videos for the first time, or might get, this is a whole other side story. But after I was doing this, in the middle of this process, my mom, I'm sitting across from somebody, and we have a conversation. The guy, and this is like 6:30 in the morning at this random Starbucks, because there's like 100 of them, this guy tells me he's a cancer doctor, and then long story short, this was my mom's cancer doctor. I hadn't seen him in a year. I didn't even know it was him, but there I was sitting with him at this Starbucks,
that's a productive accident right there. You reconnected.
Oh yeah. That's, where did that go? I mean, that's, that's a whole other story talking about Dr. Williams. So we'll share that another time, but,
and his surname Williams. Is that what you're telling me? Come on.
Yeah. He's another Williams. There you go.
He could be related. You never know.
Yeah. So, so that's, fast forward, the website, I went from letters to doing videos, from doing long form interviews online, to doing podcasting, to doing a book, and then a nonprofit, and doing gratitude space pop-ups. And then I also, just to kind of close out, from what Peter and I talked a couple of weeks ago, I'm working on a pitch because I want to bring gratitude into major chains. I want to bring gratitude into coffee shops.
Wow.
So Mush, I think you could be a little pilot in Karachi right there. Just, you could go and interview 5 of your customers and, record a little video, and that goes straight into this little channel. You imagine doing that as part of your daily practice. Spend half an hour talking to 5 or 6 people. Pretty cool.
Well, a lot of our staff and managers at different outlets, when the customer is leaving, they ask them, how's your experience at Coffee Wagera today? And they say, oh, it was fantastic. And they would say, what was fantastic about it? Can you tell me more? And then they would say, oh, I love the atmosphere, I love the coffee, I love this, I love that. And then they would take out their phone and they'll say, for that, please, can you say that again? Right. And that's what makes the most popular of our Insta stories. And that has been our marketing thing from day one. Those short 30-second, 1-minute videos of our customers just before leaving and saying they had a great experience. And there was a huge, biggest part of our marketing program. Let's hear from the customer.
It's great.
Which was basically
the other thing you could do, and this is spinning back to those gratitude pasta dinners. What they do is just put down one word. How are you feeling on the way into this conversation? And people say, oh, look, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling whatever. And by the end of these random conversations, it goes for about an hour. You do these little breakout rooms and you express gratitude for somebody that you may not have spoken about for some time or acknowledged previously. And at the end of it, they say, okay, tell us how you're feeling now. And it's, this one word sort of bubble of different emotions. And, people are feeling suddenly optimistic and hopeful and grateful and all these good things. And so you could literally have this scientific sort of measurement of people's mood on the way in and on the way out of your experience.
Yes.
Same with what Chris is doing too, So I think there's lots of possibilities there. Good stuff. And then Chris also compiled a series of letters and essays into a book last year, so called Dear Gratitude, and an anthology sort of thing. So that was a great opportunity for me to contribute to that, and then to reach out to a whole bunch of friends. My eldest daughter contributed, friends in different countries, and it's pretty cool to see that now printed. And he's probably got a copy right there, and and that's a recurring exercise, and it's a hell of a lot easier to write one essay than it is to write a whole book. So it's like a baby step towards, okay, now I'm a published author kind of thing. You're giving people an opportunity to do that, which is really awesome. And then the other idea that Chris came up with was we're crossing into 2021, and he said, you know what, 2020 kind of sucked, but also there was a lot of good stuff that happened. So let's focus on the good stuff. And so a lot of these connections that would not have happened if it wasn't for COVID in some ways, because of technology and because of just being open-minded. So Chris has got another project right now where he's calling for essays, Dear 2020. So let's go back and think of the good things that happened, even though it was challenging for a lot of people. So that's, I don't know what stage that's at, Chris, but you've made pretty good progress, I think.
Yeah, that's I appreciate you mentioning the next book. Yeah, it's not a COVID book; it's a perspective book. At the end of any chapter, any day, you get to decide what did it all mean. You get to decide: do I want to forget today, or do I want to walk away with some knowledge, or think of a friendship, or whatever? Obviously, we get the choice. So the beautiful thing about Dear 2020 is it was just put out going, write a letter to the year, expressing whatever you want to say. I didn't, obviously it came from gratitude space, but I didn't say, okay, I need you to tell me what was the good, right? Or what was the bad. I just was write about it. And the great thing about giving that call out is you're going to get the spectrum of colors, just like Dear Gratitude Anthology. It's not one person's idea. There's, gratitude is different to everybody. They're going to experience it differently. 2020 was different to everybody. They're going to experience it differently. But, it's the range of emotions of people at the end of the day going, well, some bad happened, some good happened, but this is what I took away from it, And I feel like the more we can put that out in the world, right? That means the more we can make people think about it, the more that we can have stuff people read about it. It just gives people a perspective that allows them to think about their year. You know, I hate to think anybody would get through a year and think nothing happened this last year. Let's go. It's a blank page. 365 days of your life is a blank page, and we're going to say nothing. You know. So speaking to Peter, though, Peter put the call out for that and got me like I think almost a third of the book is thanks to Peter and his excellent friends and his passion to reach out and inspire people to think about perspective and gratitude. So thank you, brother. You're awesome.
No, and the great thing is whenever you want to, each of those people are potential podcast conversations, and I think the new tradition that just we stumbled across, I think last time, was to invite those people to read the letter or the essay that they wrote. And to me, that's really powerful too, because you're getting people to share their stories, and it's like going into this time capsule that, you know, pretty valuable to future, you know, your own family, your children, their children, and beyond, right? So all of this stuff, even if no one's listening to our conversation now, someone somewhere is going to stumble across this one day and look back on these series of conversations. So I'm looking forward to one day hopefully going to Karachi and visiting Mush's coffee shop and just continuing these conversations. And I also noticed that you're doing these mobile coffee carts that you're popping up. I think they're probably franchise things, right? I saw that you published something about that on Facebook recently, and I shared that to a friend who works at Nest Cafe, Greg March. I don't know if you ever came across Nest Cafe when you were here, Mush, run by the Nesbitt Center or Nesbitt Foundation, and they have a similar model that they're playing around with as well, and helping people that with disabilities to potentially be completely self-sufficient and to have their own coffee carts and have them, you know, established around the cities. So maybe what about your children? What are they up to now? I know that you've got some really creative, your daughters I've met at different times through TEDx, and then other different, I think maybe they were mentoring to Resolve Foundation. All these overlaps kept on happening as well. So what are they up to now?
Well, my daughter has got 2 kids, so I'm a grandpa.
I see you enjoying that. I have to say, that's exciting.
Yeah, two kids, and she still pursues her passion for henna. So henna is the art of painting hands and body. It's an Asian art, and she's taken it to another level. She's done that, and she still does that. She does brides and she does henna workshops, and extremely productive mom and entrepreneur and Instagrammer and all of that. So extremely happy and successful in her life. My son is still in Hong Kong. He built a recruitment company, and he's doing that very successfully. He's given up the company to his partners. He's left the company to his partners and joined another recruitment firm. Again, I think he's extremely happy and successful. The third one is a special needs person, and he joined the Special Olympics of Pakistan as soon as we moved here. And he trained for a year, and he was selected to represent Pakistan in athletics, and he won a gold medal. Wow. So he's a Olympics gold medalist, Special Olympics from 2019 cool. World Games. And my youngest daughter is passionate about sustainable fashion. She's also in Hong Kong, and she works for a company based in Singapore that makes footwear sustainable, following the sustainability model. So she wants to make an impact on the environment.
Fantastic. Very, very cool. So I guess no one is traveling at the moment, but I guess you will come back here occasionally as well. So we'll have to catch up next time you're in town to continue some of these conversations. Yeah, and you know,
back in Hong Kong, it's been long overdue.
Yeah. The book project, when is that scheduled to be complete, Chris, for the year 2020?
Oh, it's it should be out by April 30th, so that'll be the anniversary of my mom's passing. So it'll either be. We were initially shooting for the March 21st, but I'm giving a little more air there to breathe, so I don't have to stress about getting it all done. So because obviously everything's on my own timetable. So, but I mean, basically all my writing's done. It's being edited, and then we're going to start February 1st or 2nd when we'll start editing all the essays and sending the letters out to everybody, letting them know that they're going to be in the book and getting a designer and all that.
So this book, you've got other people contributing for the book, people writing those letters.
Yeah, Dear 2020, we already put the call out, already got the letters. There was 35 that were picked. So it's a little small. It's going to be a little bit smaller, but it'll still be probably a 200-page book. So, yeah, but no, I've already got, I've already gotten 30. There's 35 in there, and they're excellent. Like what Peter was saying, last week we interviewed his friend Andrea, and she read her letter, the 2020, which was awesome. It's a really beautiful letter about her seeing last year through her son's eyes. That's basically, is really, I'd read it. I loved it, but it's hearing her read it, man, it was so great. And speaking to what Peter was saying, productive accidents like this, dear gratitude. Right now I'm interviewing the writers and I'm having them read their essays. So what's happening is the podcast is allowing to become releasing the book slowly of people talking, sharing the book. So it's giving me an excuse to interview everybody and get them to read their essays. So there's so much, right? That just keep piling up,
Fantastic.
And it's an easy thing to reproduce every year.
Say again?
Peter, you got a copy of your book next to you?
Oh, do we? We do the three up.
Good idea.
Yes, let me grab mine.
Yeah.
I've got it somewhere here.
We're gonna do the 3 author book showing coming up here, guys. We could do this whole one again where you said that we could do this whole one again in a couple of weeks where we each get to share 10 minutes of our book, like Peter was saying.
I've got lots of other people's books. I'm going to have to go out into the living room and grab it, or I'm going to leave the computer here. I'm going to run away. I'll be back. Hang on.
Mush, it's so great to meet you, man. I wanted to say, like, this is such a great productive accident. The fact he's sharing your story and that he'd heard it differently and made it 100 days instead of 100 weeks. I love, geez, isn't that awesome? Like just if we didn't have this conversation, he's been telling the story, but he took your idea because you inspired him, and he made it 100 days. It's freaking great, man.
That's even better, right?
Well, it's just you inspired him, and that's how he heard it, and then that's just his memory of it, and that's how he lived it. It's awesome.
There you are.
All right, so we'll do the 3 authors and 3 books. Okay,
full screen, and
how
are we taking a picture? Screenshot. How do I do a screenshot?
Yeah, I can take a screenshot later when the video's up if you want me to, from the live feed. You're still muted, Peter, so let you know. All right. There we are. Excellent. Oh, did you take? I'll take an extra screenshot of the video later, Mush. I'll send it to you.
Hey, maybe talk about your book, Mush. I know it's your sort of philosophy of happiness, right? And Dhinchak means happiness, positivity, etc. Right? Give us a bit of an overview. Can you hear me?
Looks like maybe his audio cut out. Oh,
there he is.
Oh, some reason your mic's not working now, man. At least you can't hear you. That's weird.
Yeah, you can't hear us.
Oh, you can't hear us either. Okay.
We can hear each other, but it seems like Mush can't hear us. Yeah, he just put his hands to his ears. But I know roughly what it's about, and Dhinchak literally means happiness, I think, in Pakistani perhaps, and it's a collection of his thoughts around that, and he's talking, but we can't hear him.
You know, I got to tell him, Peter, when you ran away, I got to tell him how wonderful it was to hear him share his story, and then you guys share how you remember him telling the story, and like how you took the idea. He inspired you. You took the idea and made it 100 days. I was like, it was so brilliant to like hear the word. You know, you've talked about this man, the story, and like how you remember it differently. Like you X'd it by times 10. Like it's like he inspired you, and then you like just. He inspired you because you thought that was what happened. You know, it's almost like somebody saying, "Oh, we could do the mile in 4 minutes," and like you're like, "Okay, I can do it."
Yeah, it's funny actually because we, you know, now I don't feel so guilty for letting it take so long. You know, because I always think, "Why I've had this material for so long, and why is it taking me?" You know, but it does take time, right, to digest and think about how do you organize your thoughts. In some ways, you end up having too much content. And you know, you need some external input in some ways. So I've got someone in the US who's looking at maybe helping to do version 0. This was version 0.0,
right.
but to turn it into the 0.1, you know, and take it into different markets and things like that is one thing we're playing with. So pretty cool how it keeps on evolving and snowballing. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with your coffee shop project, because I think, you know, this whole idea with just like tea with strangers, or, you know, just having random conversations with people, especially in a setting like that, where you're hopefully open to conversation, will be really powerful. And you're going to build a lot of momentum there. So looking forward to seeing more of that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Andrea this coming week because I finished the first book, and after I talk to her, I definitely will get you on the phone. So, you know, as this idea develops of how to pitch this, you know, and how it becomes more than it can be, you know. I think the most important thing is, it sounds like he's going to try to pop back in, which is good.
Okay.
You know, to me, it's like if you can get a corporation to build the environment, you know, the most important thing is they can be on board to build the environment of gratitude. You know, it'll be obviously allow that space. You know, obviously I come in and I make the space a gratitude space, right? So that's what remember we were talking before. It's like how if I leave though, how does the corporation keep that glow, right? That's where it's like, how do we, you know, what do they put into play? What would that cost? What would that look like? And honestly, because I've been thinking about this, and that's what's so great about a conversation, right? It's like I've realized really easy ways for them to do that, which would be cost little to nothing, honestly. Because they already have the infrastructure, they already are printing things, right? They already have the cup, you know, they already make cups, they already make the little warmer, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they're already printing receipt, you know, there's stuff already going on. So it's not like to create the space. It's not like I'm asking somebody to, you know, to build an extra room in the house. You're really more talking about, well, we're just going to decorate this a little differently, and we're going to add a little bit of color here, you know? But it's about the company getting on board and wanting to do that, which, you know, you do it a little bit. It's going to be self-evident how good it is, you know, and who's going to see that, and where's that conversation going to go? You know, obviously this works in a coffee shop, but it also could work like at a Costco, like a big, you know, you could be in a big grocery store, even, you know, you could be at a Ralph's. I mean, it's just where people come, right? You need traffic, foot traffic of people, and you set up an environment. Like I said, last week, it's like, a concert would be perfect. An arena concert would be perfect for this. Obviously, a theater, even a Broadway production, you know, anywhere that people are coming, they're already excited.
Absolutely. Walking into Hamilton or walking into whatever, Harry Potter, or, you know, whatever it is, any of those productions, right?
These people are showing up, and they're there, and they're going to want to, that kind of numbers, you're just going to get some really great stories and going to get some really great people sharing a lot of love, you know? So it's
really good idea. I mean, you could do roaming, right? I mean, I always thought about, you know, this idea of people. It's always good to have portrait sort of photos, more professional. So everyone's got cameras on their phones and everything, but you're rarely getting a good photo with say narrow depth of field and the blurry background, and, you know, the just with a photographer's eye. But if you could have a roaming photographer, just, you know, in different situations, say, hey, I'm going to take a proper photo for you, and, you know, what's your email? And you wouldn't have to charge much money, but I think it would be a cool way of collecting memories, just like what you're doing with the videos, right? You go to a sporting event, or you go to a wedding or something, instead of having the photo booth, you have the gratitude booth. I think that's still a great idea, and that can evolve from conferences to anything. Actually, yeah, conferences is another platform, just like you're talking about for coffee shops and everything else. You know, you got a few hundred people for a day. You know, by the way, make sure you pass through the gratitude booth and pause for a second.
So conference would be huge, man, because they would it'd be sitting there something in between and during the day, or if it's a 3-day thing. And, you know, the great thing about if it was multiple days is we could pop these videos up to inspire people to come share, you know, like it just becomes this, like, you know, this train thing. Because you know, these companies are already doing stuff, right? They're already putting, it isn't like we're saying to reinvent the wheel. The companies are putting things in the lobby that promote or are already part of the event. They're making it more, right? You're making it more, the event, more of an experience. Well, they're already doing this.
Well, here's an idea, right? Productive excellence is exactly the same thing, right? A lot of people go to conferences and they sit with people that they already know, which is missing the point, right? But if you set the scene and say, hey, your challenge today is to meet, you know, at least 3 people that you have a proper conversation with, and keep talking until you find something you know that you both have in common or that you both care about, and then challenge yourself to collaborate. That's going to be a lot better experience for anyone that's going to a particular conference, especially if you say, look, this is a framework for innovation, or it's a framework for adventure, or whatever you want to talk about. So all of these ideas, you know, we probably need a third one. If you've got gratitude, you've got productive excellence, what would be a third positive sentiment that you could try to capture? I like to do things in groups of 3. That's all. And just to think, what else is out there? There's got to be something that either builds a bridge between the two or is incremental. If we can't think of it now, I'm sure we will. Our subconscious will think about it during the day.
Yeah, well, you know, it's you know, I did the podcast with my friend Richard the other day. He has a Live Life Now, you know, project where he's interviewing cancer survivors and patients. He's been doing it for the last 6 years. And one of his questions was, you know, what has your illness taught you? What have you learned? So not saying illness, but you could, if you want to engage somebody, you could ask them a question that's like that, and, you know, something that's very serious, and ask them, like, what did you learn from it? Like, so I don't know. He has a bunch of questions. We can obviously adopt ideas from that. I would be, I don't know. I was thinking, you know, when you were mentioning the conference, you know, if it was multiple days, I think it'd be amazing. What if one of the prompts, because now you're giving people prompts, right? You're saying, go out, talk to somebody you didn't know. But what if one of the prompts was, you know, ask somebody, you know, something they're grateful for, and then come share that experience with us. So the cool thing is now you're actually having the person. So then I sit down to a stranger, Peter. The great thing is we've all been prompted this, right? So when I go, you know, so my name's Chris, you know, how you doing? You know, I want to share something you're grateful for. Can you share that with me? Then we get that, we're making that experience happen. And then hopefully I'm going to come back to the booth later and actually share what you're grateful for.
Hey, just Mush says he's trying to get back in. Do you have to let him into the waiting room or something, or?
It's saying that his device is not connected. I see him trying to get in here, but it's saying that it says device not connected. So I would have to let him in, but I can't let him in because it's saying his microphone and cam, it's not connected. So when he goes into that main room, he has to when he goes to the link initially, he has to make sure that his camera and his microphone is connected. But some reason, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like I can't do anything, man. Unfortunately.
No problem. Well, how about we wrap up now and we can chat. But thanks again, Chris. I know it's pretty tough getting the internet to work across 3 zones. I think Mush was fading in and out. I don't know if I was a little bit as well. But anyway, I think it was a fun conversation. I'm glad we connected the dots. I'm glad Mush was able to clarify it's actually 100 weeks, not 100 days. But anyway, I'm going to stick to 100 days. Good fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I love to have Mush on. I'm glad to finally meet after you talking about it. It was awesome to meet him, and hopefully we can have another conversation later. He's a excellent person. I love how his passion came from wanting his, you know, to allow his children to go to any college they wanted to. I thought that was really that was beautiful.
Yeah, and it connected back, and I'm sure they appreciate it so much because of, he would have shared with them that, he didn't have that opportunity, and what an amazing gift that he was able to provide. He and his wife were able to provide to them, and that's why I think that they're a great family, and I'm really happy that I met Mush, and it'd be great. Maybe he could be in Hong Kong when you converge in Hong Kong one day, somewhere along the lines. We'll have to meet up physically, so lots to look forward to.
I think he's given us a huge excuse, me and you, to have a tour, us to go visit him and get videos in his coffee shop. So he's building an infrastructure over there, and that's the point. It's just about you and I taking the adventure to him.
Absolutely. And I actually, whenever I meet anyone from Pakistan, I always say, "Oh yeah, do you know this area in Karachi? Next time you're there, you check out Mush's coffee shop." And I'm able to Google it because I've got it in here, and people will bump into him, and these conversations are going to continue, which I think is always good fun. So to be continued.
For sure, to be continued. I'm Chris with Peter and Mush, and Mush still in Pakistan. I'm going to stick around, everybody. They have something to be grateful for, and we'll be seeing you hopefully next week. Bye.